Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the West Bend Community Memorial Library Board meeting for Tuesday, June 18th. I would like to ask for an approval of the agenda with a change that we move old business B, basement renovation, up to the first item.
So approved.
So you have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Does that go before the consent agenda now?
Yes.
Yes. So we moved you up even before the consent. Wow, Craig, you're a star.
I need a piece of paper there, all right.
Greg, would you like to explain, or should I?
Why don't you start?
Okay,
I was taught.
I know. It's a joint effort. We had our first meeting of the committee comprised of Parks, Recreation, and Forestry representatives and the library representatives for the project, and that was June 5th. We discussed a lot about design and financing. The design costs were estimated at the beginning to be $26,000. A discussion was had around how to reduce those costs, and the idea was brought up that we should have the bids for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing include the plans that that those particular areas of work that would need to be done. So like the companies would have the plans. So this way, the architects would just prepare what's called scope notes or scope documents, and for those three areas, and they would also include architectural designs. Is that right, Craig? Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay. By doing this, it reduced our cost to about $16,500. So it reduces it by $9,500. We also talked about how to finance the costs of the design, and we believe that sharing those costs is a good idea. I know Tim brought up the thought that, you know, if something happens with this project where it doesn't go through, we could still have access to those designs if we wanted to build ourselves. So that, and we also have in on the design plan, so we would have some say in what the design would be as well. So my recommendation is to approve the design work for this project not to exceed $8,250 from the building fund, because it is for building renovations. We do have funding in that line that is left over from the actual building project that happened in 2000. That's
We've
been
got
sitting there.
$37,000 in that account.
Correct.
That was held over.
So that's my recommendation.
To cover the design cost?
Mm-hmm.
Would you like a motion to approve that? I'll make the motion to approve it.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Discussion.
Mm-hmm.
You said that you talked about financing.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have anything in here in your report.
We talked about how to finance the architectural designs,
Oh, and not the rest of the project.
not necessarily.
I think part of it, Doug, in my mind, out of this, if I'm misstating, I don't know, but part of it is we need this to even talk about financing. We have a lot of estimated numbers right now and what ifs, and we believe it's gonna cost this, and if we split 50-50 or whatever else, this will get us to be able to bid and talk about actual costs. And then be able to come back and say, well, you know, if we didn't do this now, or if we did this now, what is our long-term savings? Because we know if we do projects in multiple stages, the cost over time increases instead of doing it all at one lump sum. And I think it's premature to start, in my mind, saying we're gonna commit X amount of money to do this whole project.
Because we don't know what it
There's
is.
a big variance in there right now. And so I'd rather go through this, worst case scenario, we got some great plans of having some rooms in the basement that if we so choose to build, we could do on our own if this doesn't work out.
Well, is the feeling of that committee that we are going to go ahead, because it's now been a month, and I can see this stretching out into 2 or 3 more months, and all of a sudden, you're not gonna have a place to go to, and we won't be able to do anything down here until all these, you know, this committee meeting. So is there any way of speeding up this process and
tackling
Take a look at your,
Yeah, we actually talked about that at the meeting, and I think everyone involved, at least at that level, was positive about the project, and we decided that we didn't want to have a lot of meetings about this, we wanted to actually.
No,
do
I
this.
agree.
So I think that's what the plan is.
And it really, this commits, if we commit funding to this, you guys commit funding to this step has to happen before we can have the rest of those conversations.
Correct.
And I think that's the big piece of it, is we need this from this group to really boom, boom, boom the next part of it. You know, I think some of the conversations were is how fast can we do that, but we're gonna be at the mercy of contractors and how fast they can get here, but if we so choose to do the project and how fast materials are available. That's the other piece right now, so.
I have a question, Craig, did Zimmerman indicate how long it might take?
Yes. So we tried to reduce the fees, as Amy covered. It's called scope documents. They're also doing some architectural drawings, and this also includes their oversight of the project through construction administration to the end of the project. So that's all tied into this fee. By going to the scope documents, they can spend a lot less time on the documents themselves, and basically it'll be a little more down the line of design build with individual, so mechanical, electrical, plumbing, etc. So we're kind of knocking out what we talked before, the general contractor. We run separate contracts for each of these disciplines, and asking Mark about timing, he said 3 to 4 weeks to produce the design and the bid documents that we need to send out. So we're in that mid-July to third week of July probably. Yeah.
you think we could expedite it so we would have your group look at it prior to our next board meeting, which is probably going to be
It's the 16th.
the 16th of July?
Yeah, I'm not
That's,
sure.
that's 4 weeks from now,
Right,
or,
I'm thinking through what we'll need to do next. I think we'll actually be at, if we go through the design process, the next step would be bidding it. And then it's gonna take a little while to get contractors to come through and look at the
True.
building and submit bids. I think that's the point where we really need to sit down and say, okay, now,
okay.
moving forward or not. So I don't know if in 3 or 4 weeks, if we really have much to talk about, unless there's a big change in design or something, but
Okay,
by that next month, we get bids back and then say, yes, it's green light or not, or.
so what your proposal would be is that you get the design, the committee will meet and talk about it, and you would send that out for bids and then possibly come back, as opposed to us looking, which is fine with me, I mean, I don't have a
Right,
problem with
I think
that,
that'll
that,
keep things moving, and the other committee's oversight then.
and that's what we want, to
Right.
keep things
We have a
moving.
general feel of what layout's gonna be, it's gonna get tweaked a little bit, but, no, I think that makes the most sense.
When
And we're
do you-
hoping,
I'm sorry, go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, just by going through this process where we're doing it, the good part is we think we can save some costs by going this design build and working individually. But the negative is that bidding this out in July, August, costs are not gonna be in our favor. So I think we're gonna need to give them more time. So if we can say instead of you need to do this in a 60-day period, if we stretch that to 90 or 120 days, and there can do some work in November, December, whatever it is, I think that could help us. So we have to be a little careful on that. Optimal time to bid things out is January, probably, so we obviously are not gonna wait till January, we're gonna this January.
When do you need this space by?
I would love to look at my crystal ball. Chris, when do we need the space by?
Yesterday?
The last we heard is the broker with the mutual mall still has a 90-day extension. That goes into August. If they don't find anybody, that could be sitting there yet for a while. If they find somebody, a developer, it could happen sooner, so.
But if they find a developer and the guy says, okay, I want it, and he comes up with a plan, he can kick you out then, right?
Yeah, within reason. So then we would be kind of onto our own facilities to cover ourselves probably through the fall. So again, my optimal time is January 1st, that we'd actually be in.
Okay.
If we sense that bids are high and we can stretch it a little bit further because the mutual mall's not getting sold, we can stretch it, but I think we're looking first of the year.
Do you see this coming in any more than 400,000?
I certainly hope not. I really don't know.
I think there's a lot of unknowns right now. I mean, when you talk
Well,
about,
The last meeting, you had come up with $400 and some thousand.
Yeah, I tried to get down to 300.
saying is, the original was 400,
Right.
and now a month later, you're saying you have no idea.
Well, I've said last meeting, we'd have it at around 300, so we're knocking out the general contractor.
My
So
question
whether
was,
it's 325 or 275, I don't know.
no,
And it shouldn't go above, towards 400 though.
okay, that's my question. Do you foresee this going any more than 400,000?
Now, if we're talking phase one, no. Because I don't think we'd want to do it. I think it's really expensive.
I think there's some additional costs that the group talked about when you get into things like security. When you talk about access coming into that downstairs space and different things that aren't part of phase one that have to be worked out in the process. So when you talk about total cost of ownership, those are things that still have to be worked out in the sense of, are we putting security cameras down there? How are people getting down there? What, we had a long conversation about the elevator and access through that. Those are things that were never discussed in that original build-out cost that you wouldn't see about building rooms with walls and things like that.
Do you have a list or a bullet point list of those things that need to get resolved?
We took notes from the meeting.
But I think it was brought up 3 or 4 things, if you don't have, I guess, what I'm saying, I'd kind of like to see a list of that stuff so that, next meeting we can sit here and say, okay, this is what you guys said we need to get done. This is what we got done. If you don't have.
I don't, oh, go ahead.
If you don't have a list of those things that you need to get done, it's just gonna drag out.
But wouldn't that come out in the design phase of what you're gonna be
Yes.
needing?
I think some of them will, but some of them, Doug, are purely operational items for Amy and Brad to figure out. They're not even the committee's part of it. Some of it's operational, how they're gonna operate
And Parks is gonna operate.
expectations and
But if
Parks and
those-
Rec, those necessarily aren't things even the committee. We may talk about or came up in it, but I think part of it's, they have to work some of those things out because their operational process may change. I don't know that that is a cost to anything in some cases.
But if there are things that you and Brad have to talk about, and decisions have to be made, you have to decide then if there's gonna be a cost or not. Right? And so when will that occur? By the next meeting, 2 meetings after that, 3 meetings after that? I have a real concern, this could be turned into almost like the park, and it took almost 2 or 3 years to get that thing done, because nobody would make a decision and say, here's what we gotta do, let's do it. I'm all in favor of this. In fact, I would like to make a suggestion, this is just my discussion, that the library board make a commitment to a sum of money so that the committee and that there are funds that would be reserved for you to have to get this done, as opposed to going through this whole process and then coming to the board and working. We bought another elevator, we spent the money here, we spent the money there, and it's not there anymore.
What if we say, Doug, that while the group or the team is working with the design and on the design, during that, Amy and Brad will start working on it, so at the same time they have a design, we will then have a
We'll deal with
listing
issues.
of what is needed. Does that suffice?
No, this is the point. Last month, we started looking at dollars and cents. And we had 400, I think, we had $407,000 that we could spend for this project. That's, fund balances. During that meeting alone, that dropped to 30-some thousand because of insurance. It dropped some more because we needed to pay something off. And now this month, it could be dropping some more because we have additional projects. And what my point being is, I would like to see us tonight say to this group or the board, reserve monies for this project, so that you've got half the money sitting there waiting.
I don't think we can do that I understand we can say we want to reserve funds, but God, if something would happen, the roof would cave in. If we had funds reserved for the basement, guess what? Those funds are gonna have to be, you know, we can say
Well, you
this.
can also say, what would happen if we're halfway in this project and the roof caves in, you know?
Well, then
This-
then we do have to deal with that, but
See-
I don't think we can,
Here's my issue. I'm seeing reasons why we can't. I do not see any reasons coming why we can. That's my issue.
Here's my take on that, Doug, and this is why I wouldn't support that at this time. We as a board have not had the conversation, I go back to, Chris made this comment the last meeting and I do too. We are the leasing agent to Parks and Rec in this case.
Right.
If this was any other organization, we would not be having this conversation about giving our money to build out his walls,
I
their
agree.
walls. And I think until we know what that cost is and what that benefit is, as much as I'd like to say, we'll give you X amount of money and I'm all for this project, it's not that we can't, there are just details that have to get figured out, because at some point we have to say, it's gonna cost X number of square feet, so we had conversations about custodial services, electrical, all of those things. That all has to be worked out, but I also have a hard time committing money when I don't know what that final cost is, because if we say we're gonna give $200,000 to this, and it comes in at $250,000, well, now it's our project, and it's not yours, and now
We
their
could-
rent goes up.
We could commit to 200,000 or half of whatever the project is going to be.
I think the question then would become is, are we committing it up front? Or are we gonna get our money back in the lease, or are we gonna charge them more in the lease and put less money? You know, where is that balance going to be? And without numbers, I just have a real hard time in my mind committing that funding where we could wait another month or two to figure it out. That's just me.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate the support, but I also don't want to go into it blindly. So I think it's fair to wait, I would say that's the August meeting is when we have numbers to understand exactly what we're dealing with and say, yep, that makes sense, or we gotta change this, or we should go down a different path. So I'm comfortable in 2 months to come up with that information. Your roof, it's not gonna rain anymore, it may snow yet. We'll see. And I'll let you know as well, our friends group, so it's West Bend Friends of Parks and Recreation, are the ones that would meet you and split the cost of the design. So our partners with us, and that would keep things moving faster as well. So I assume if you approve it tonight, they've already approved their half, and we can turn tomorrow and get things moving.
We did have a motion to prepare.
yes, we did, yeah, then we had a discussion. We had a motion. We have
That was
a,
good discussion.
do we have any further discussion? Okay.
So it was first.
So we have a motion and a second to approve, what was the exact amount,
$8,250 to come from the building
To
fund.
come from the building fund to cover half of the design. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Craig. Keep working on it.
Thank you very much. I will be calling Mark tomorrow, and we'll keep things moving. Thank you
Awesome.
very much for your support.
And
Thanks for
you,
moving up to the
you,
front.
yes, and you will have the same, you both will stay on this team, Joanne and Tim.
Well, this is a
Good,
life
thank you.
sentence now.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Consent agenda.
Yes. I'd like to ask for a motion for the consent agenda to approve the minutes of May 21st and also the approval of the library expenditures for May of 2019.
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? Otherwise, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Financial reports, Mr. Joseph.
All right. So, I'm not entirely sure exactly what I'm doing with this report since it's my first one, but we'll go for it. So, overall, the first page of the report with the grand total of the non-taxpayer funds, not a whole lot has moved around. Most of it's doing what it's supposed to. But for the second page, we had quite a few donors this month for the non-restricted account going towards our summer reading program. The Knights of Columbus, Delta Defense, First Bank, West Bend Dental, and Hetzel Law Office all donated towards the summer reading program. We did have auto insurance that had to be paid, and then we made one payment towards an event for last month. And then $1.69 of interest income, always a good thing to see.
Yeah, right. Auto insurance, is that for the van?
No, that is for the board insurance.
The board? Oh, okay, got it. So it's not really auto, it's
No,
board
it's
insurance.
auto insurance is the company.
Company who
That's the
does it.
company, and that is to finance our bond.
Yes, okay. The other thing, I see we got the money from the county.
Yes.
That came in, which
Yep.
is good. Okay, any questions for Joseph? Otherwise, we will move on. Public comments, our normal public comment. It isn't really a public comment, but I would like to introduce Jennifer, even though she'll be on a little later in the agenda. But Jennifer is the new director of the Monarch system. And some of you may know Jennifer, her husband Jack had been a board member a few years ago. So Mrs. Chamberlain, welcome.
Chamberlain. Oh,
Yes.
I remember that. Yeah.
He's hard to forget.
Yes, I remember that.
Okay,
New
that'll be it.
Monarch Director, right?
Yep, Monarch
Monarch.
Library System Director, yep. Interim.
Interim. So now we will move on to the library director's report. I know it wasn't public comment, Jennifer, but I actually forgot to do you earlier on. Library board director's report. Library
Okay.
director's report.
As you can see, my report is a couple of pages long. Our summer reading update, our ice cream social was a huge success. We served 570 cups of ice cream. And many parents did not take ice cream, so we estimate over 600 people were in the park over the evening. We have a lot planned for Universe of Stories this year for June and July. Starlab was here on Friday, which drew about 100 people within 3 programs. We could take 30 people at a time into Starlab. It was in the reading area. We set up a portable planetarium, and it was really neat. Our elementary craft drew 50 kids. It was amazing. We have approximately 60 teen volunteers this year, which is a great number, helping us out with reading log desk and the programs and events that happen here at the library. We also had a nice article in the Daily News about summer reading and all the activities planned, so keep watching the paper for us for good news. Mr. Brad graduated from Leadership Academy last month, so we congratulate him. We had a volunteer appreciation party for our regular volunteers that come during the year. Just thanking them for all the work that they do. It's mostly adults that come in and shelve for us on the second floor. There are some adults that pull books for holds. We have some people that help us shelf read, all those types of activities, and help Terica get projects ready and all of that. So we thank them for their many years of service. Other highlights.
Summer intern.
Oh yes, we do have a summer intern this year. Sam is a journalism student at UWM Washington County, and she's helping us with some marketing and blog posts and things like that. We also started an Instagram page, which she has been helping us post on as well. So, and then we're putting those posts also on Facebook, so we are double duty. We have started working with the operating budget for next year. Just started preliminary work as far as getting quotes and estimates for next year's services. It looks like we anticipate a 2 to 5% increase in services, depending on the company and vendor that we use. We also have some IT needs that are coming up, which will be covered in the operating budget, I'm hoping. So stay tuned for that. Our first meeting from the city on the operating budget is June 26th. So that's when we will get the draft of the last year's budget, so we can start plugging numbers into the budget.
And how is the county fair planning going? Is that pretty well?
Yeah,
That's
it's
pretty
going
well
really
done.
well. We are meeting again next month, early next month, to finalize plans for the fair.
And when is the fair? What?
It's the last week of July. So come and stop by the fair. If you're going to the fair, stop by the Monarch booth. And thank you, Monarch, for paying for that booth.
So you're gonna be in the main building probably?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll be in one of the main buildings. We'll be inside, so. I'm not sure which one yet.
Any questions for
Any
Amy or any
questions for me?
questions on statistics? Or,
We had a nice, year-to-date is up from last year, which I was very happy with. So, for circulation, and very excited about that.
And I noticed in the total number of card holders, we had gone down, but Amy informed me that they've been doing a purging of old
Yep,
card holders, so
Yep.
that's where that occurred.
yep.
So-
And we did a purge, this past weekend, for the year. So next month, you will see a little bit of a decrease by about 2,000, give or take.
Okay. If there's no questions, we'll move on to item 7, Library Board Director's Report. Nothing specific to report, so we will move on to number 8, Old Business Monarch Library System Update.
I'd like to introduce Jennifer Chamberlain. She can talk a little bit about Monarch and what's going on at Monarch right now. You have my report in your packet, so those are the things that I noted from our last meeting.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Amy. My report is that I'm happy to be here. I've been now working, this is my second full week, I think. Started at the beginning of June, so, but time is moving very, very fast. We, understandably, I think there's been, a management gap at the system, so the system staff has really been working extremely hard and diligently to keep things running, and I think they've done an excellent job. But, there's definitely, I think they're very happy to have someone in the office as just another set of hands, to be quite honest. So we're gonna try to focus first, obviously, on things that have kind of been a little bit neglected or that maybe have just been tabled simply because they've been dealing with things that have been a little bit more high need. We're going to undergo some strategic planning ourselves. There's not a strategic plan currently in effect after the merger. They were understandably focused on pulling two systems together. And so I think the time is really very good for us to sit and have some conversations about mission, vision, and some strategic directions. I'm envisioning it being a pretty simple process. We're going to keep it, like I said, very, very light and simple so that we can have that process a little bit more expedient. But my job right now is really getting to know the staff, getting to know the libraries. I've visited, I've been to over half of the libraries, getting close to 2/3. So I'm trying to make official visits to all of those as soon as I can, trying to touch each county in sort of a fair way so that I'm getting around to all of the counties. I think I have, though, seen everything in Sheboygan County, working on Ozaukee, Washington, and Dodge as well. Trying to think what else. We do have a network proposal that Amy had mentioned in here where that hardware is going to allow the Monarch IT staff to better respond to our member libraries in terms of any outages, replacement of switch fails. By having that common equipment at all of the libraries, that'll allow us to be more responsive, and the board is dedicating some reserve balances to help fund that initiative. We're going to be offering one router, one switch, one access point to each of the libraries, and then having them participate in, obviously they'll pay for the maintenance of that equipment, and then also, I think for the first time, we're asking them to help contribute to a contingency fund, so that will allow for the replacement of that equipment down the road. Because to right now, there's really nothing in place to help libraries prepare for that. We have equipment that has exceeded the 5-6 year mark out there. We have, I think there's 3 or 4 different types of routers and switches. You know, it's hard for our, even though I think the IT staff has done a good job responding, you know, having that common standard equipment will allow that to go much more smoothly, freeing up their time so that they can focus on other projects.
Thank
Are there
you.
anything else, Amy, that you wanted me to highlight?
I don't think so. We will be going through an ILS upgrade in August. That has been approved and scheduled. It will be off hours, so we shouldn't see any major problems. Cross your fingers. The next day, it will be done on a Sunday night, so Monday morning we'll come in with a new ILS version. So,
We did that last year too,
yes,
right,
we
at
did.
the same time.
We did about the same time, and the funding for that is coming out of the replacement fund to do that upgrade off hours. Okay.
Any questions for me? And I mean, I'm here to be, you know, I'm obviously very accessible. If you have any questions or anything that you are expecting to see from Monarch, that and obviously you have Doug here as your liaison with the board, but please direct any concerns or questions to me, and I may not know the answer in 2 weeks on the job, but I'll find it.
Yeah, I guess, I had a question. Last year, I think there was a survey that went out at least to the board members out of the libraries in the system, and perhaps other people too connected with the libraries in the system, and it was pretty wide-ranging list of questions, and talking a lot about like how you did things, you know, and your processes. And I guess I didn't hear anything about that afterward, but if that's available, I guess I'm interested to kind of see how West Bend does things relative to other places, if we can learn from other places or improve based on the survey. The questions were really interesting questions, and I think it would help everybody to share it. So if it hasn't been shared, that would be one thing too. Do you recall it, Doug? Did you take the survey too?
Well, I remember the survey,
Okay.
but I also recall my recall is that it was like for an internal document so that best practices from West Bend could be compared with best practices with another library to see what we can garner from each other. That was the intent of the thing, but I'm sure that I'm not sure if there's a synopsis of the survey or not.
Can I ask, yeah, I'm very curious. This is the first I'm hearing of it, so this is good. Was it put together by the system office? Did Amy?
Amy might have done it. I don't know if, I'm trying to remember if I took it, and I might have, and I just don't remember it right now.
Okay. I got the person's name who put it out because I had a little back and forth with them about a couple questions I was interested in.
Yeah.
And I can dig that up for you and get it to you.
That would be great, and I can have, I mean, if I'm
Yeah,
sure
I'll do that.
when I go in the office tomorrow, I'll ask Lynn what she knows about it, and thank you, that's really good to know. I would like to see that. And I will then figure out what the mechanism was, if at all, to share that information back out.
Okay.
Can you explain the book club kits?
Sure. I can explain the book club kits. The in-demand collection collects items that are very popular and that are in demand, obviously. When those items are no longer in demand, they actually get on a list from Mead in Sheboygan to go out to the libraries. So the libraries can claim copies. And the idea is that if a library wants to claim a title for a book club kit, they would get first dibs on that title. So they could say, you know, I want 8 copies of the latest James Patterson to make a book club kit with. And then they would get those copies. They would be responsible for buying the supplies to make the book club kit and for putting questions in or whatever else they would need to buy for that book club kit. Then they would own it and manage it. So it's just another opportunity for libraries to actually get extra copies of titles to make the kits to circulate.
Because those titles are purchased
With system money.
funding for the resource library. So then those are offered up to member libraries, and in the past, they could take one copy here, one copy here, one copy
Right.
here. But if there's multiple copies, enough to make a kit, the first kind of opportunity is to make that. And there's also, I just learned, there's a statewide book club kit list. So we will put these on that as well. So and there'll be
Available.
documentation on best practices on how to put these in the catalog so that they're discoverable, so that book clubs know that these are available.
What usually comes in a kit, and how many do we have here?
Usually for our kits, we have 8 copies of the book, a large print copy and an audiobook, and then some questions that can be used for discussion. And then they're in a plastic container and they're placed behind the circulation desk. And then people can request them at the circulation desk and check them out right there.
Okay. If there aren't any more questions, thank you, Jennifer, appreciate it. Thank you for coming and visiting us and introducing yourself. Now we'll move on to a much more exciting area, I think. Number 9, new business, strategic plan, 2019 to 2022.
This is where I wish Jesse could talk. The Strategic Planning Committee has been meeting since March. We met every other week during the months of March, April, and May. And we came up with this document that you have in front of you. The first thing we did was create a mission and vision and value statements. And those are right on the first part right here. And then we worked on goals and objectives for the rest of the time. And then I put them into a brochure format for easy access to what we would like to see happen in the next 3 years.
Who's all on the committee besides you and Jesse?
Jesse and I, Brad was on the committee, Susan Robbins, Emily Laws, and Deb Jacoby.
Okay, so those staff.
Staff.
Okay, staff.
Yep.
Okay,
And their names are in my report.
okay.
So, when we first met and I pulled a bunch of strategic plans from different libraries around our size, and we felt that a 2-page strategic plan would be the best way to convey our ideas and thoughts. We had ranges from like a 15-page strategic plan, which I kind of outlined everything, to a 1-page. So we thought a 2-page would be concise and to the point without bogging down the reading of the strategic plan. These were ideas that came up during the planning process. The committee members talked to other staff members, to community members, anyone they could talk to about how we could make the library a better, more accessible place. And this is what we came up with.
I pulled out the old strategic plan. Why did you change the mission statement?
We wanted the mission statement to be more concise and more memorable. And so that's why we did that.
Isn't that the prerogative of the board?
This is just a draft, so
I like this one.
okay.
It's all inclusive, it encompasses a lot of different things, so.
I
It's-
have a couple of questions. To provide resources to discover what, to connect to whom and what, and to succeed at what. This strategic plan has got some very high sounding, commentary. And I looked back at the 2017 mission statement, I think that's the same as it was before. It says to be a lifelong learning resource by providing quality services, resources, and learning opportunities to a variety of formats to meet informational, educational, cultural, and recreational needs of the community. That is a lot more specific than this, and I think we need to be specific.
We need for Jesse to talk.
Too wordy.
Yeah.
Too wordy.
That was too wordy?
See, we're going through on another board, a vision statement and a mission statement, and I'll tell you, they have a much, much bigger mission statement than this. They want it to be wordy, because that is gonna tell the people, not everyone is gonna read the mission statement. The mission statement is just your high level that people look at to say what you are doing. You know, I know we're moving into probably a generation of people who don't want wordy things. But I'm sure the pendulum will eventually swing back, because I think, as Doug said, to provide resources to discover. What are we discovering? You know, in here we talk about I don't know, maybe, like I said, I'm old school. I don't know, I'll throw it out to Tim, what do you think?
You like the other end of this pendulum here, or what?
No, you're in the middle, we'll say you're in the middle. What do you think? What?
You know, I sit here and look at it like, you know, I agree, in my opinion, the other one's too wordy, it's way too long.
Okay.
So when I look at the whole thing, I like the design, I like the use of the colors, I like some of the words, I like all of that. Yes, I think, you know, we have to put our blessing on the mission statement. I think there's a balance, there's a balance that we have to achieve here of too wordy or too specific. And I think your mission statement has to be short, concise, so that you can sell it. I can't have 5 minutes of Chris's time in a mission statement for that. Let me get into the details of it. When I look at it, I think we need to spend, and this is my opinion, when we get into the objectives part of it, that's where I'm getting confused, because some of them are very the overarching strategic, and some are too specific.
Okay.
Like I'm gonna pick on the facility side of it, like I love the idea that we're gonna conduct a space and traffic flow assessment. That's high level. What I struggle with is why in 2021, we've already identified that the room chairs in the story room are up for replacement, when that should be part of a bigger plan.
Okay.
And those are my pieces on it. I actually have no problem with the mission statement when I look at what a library is morphing into, and we have that conversation all the time of, we want people to come here for the other services or opportunities that we offer to our community. Unfortunately, we always get funding for those, in the sense of, you know, a variety of different ways. But I actually like it. It's concise. You can sell it. It goes a tagline on your website. That's just neat.
And it's kind of subjective, you know, because it's whatever you want to discover, it's whatever you want to connect to or with, and it kind of, you succeed in however, you know.
You define success.
Right, exactly.
And I think,
So I get it.
and I think Cindy said it well, you know, this is the information hub. Let it be print, let it be digital. It's about providing resources to get that information, to investigate, learn, share, connect. I think that does it. And so, I mean, as we talk about morphing some of our programs and opportunities here for our kids, I mean, even having Park and Rec downstairs, that's an exploration piece for our kids and where they're going in their lives. So I'm actually all for it and actually like it better than our old mission statements.
Okay. Going back to the document though, is there anything in here? You know, on a strategic plan, do you usually have objectives and goals? Do you usually have, you've got objectives, do we have goals? Do we have how we're gonna accomplish the goals?
I think if it was me, and again, I'm very, I have my way of doing it, just like everybody else does, is I think we broaden some of these.
Okay.
And then, you know, the action steps are the things that this group or whoever's in charge of it brings back to us. So it might be to, maybe 2021 is, you know, develop a plan for replacement of furniture within the library. Let that plan live separately, and then we follow that through. Get that strategic, develop a plan, and let the small action steps happen after that. You know, we already have this idea of creating a facilities plan.
We have
So
it,
when the
yeah.
furniture, you know,
Okay.
broaden those things so they're larger and then create those smaller action steps. So now Amy, Brad, whoever from the library can come here and say to us, this year we did these 5 action steps. And then, we've completed these or through this, we've learned that we gotta move this action step next year because we don't have funding or it's not possible to do the parking lot or whatever. That's how I see it, to create that broad and then the specific things you're gonna do. So I would expect a
Okay.
list of things, like under marketing, we're gonna increase likes and follows on Facebook and Instagram by 10%. There would then be action steps of things that the library is gonna do to increase it. So that's how I envision it, as a separate document.
Correct.
That would deepen this out. I guess,
Correct.
that we would see. This is great to be able to say, hey, this is what the library is about right here. This is where we're going. This is the one pager in essence. Then there's that deeper piece after that.
Chris?
So we just did the same process down at the village that I work for too. Our mission statement was a little bit more wordy. That's more my board's fault than mine. But what I like is the values, and that's what I shared with my board member too. That the values are the most important. Because to me, I want you, Amy, if you're fighting for a certain item in your line item, in your budget, or whatever it might be, it has to connect to one of these values. If it doesn't, then we shouldn't be doing it, frankly. And, but so I think, and just reading this over, I think you have a pretty good, footprint of, areas that you've covered. I can see you justifying different items in our budget, different causes, different things that we do here by each one of these values. So whoever did this, great job, guys. So.
The whole committee did this.
Yes, yeah. So that's my comments. I think, again, the mission, vision, yeah, it's the fluffy, it's the feel-good stuff. What matters more to me is the values and how to use that.
Joanne?
The one thing I'd like to see that I'm not seeing here is how the objectives build on the work that was done the previous year. Like if you're gonna do the space and traffic flow assessment and the board plan in the first year, then the results of that ought to inform the objectives for
Okay.
for 2021. And so to put those objectives in here, they're fairly specific things, but they may or may not apply to what you learned in the first year. And the same thing with the collections. I'm delighted to see plans to increase the operating budget there, and to see it listed twice, I think is even better. But to base what that increase is on the results of.
That was the intent.
That kind of
That was
thing.
the intent, yeah.
I
But
think
just to state it, yes.
It helps to make that connection.
Okay.
Karen?
I agree with everybody that thinks, especially with Chris, the mission statement, it's, your phone and everything. People are not doing as much, getting so wordy, they want things fast, fast, fast. So this is very, not specific, but it covers discover, connect, and I agree with Chris, the values really make us what the library is about. Not, we're gonna do this, and all the points about making some things tied into those also make some good points too. I think everybody did a great job.
Okay.
It's more modern, it addresses the patrons we have. At least, we have a lot of older people, but the younger patrons and the younger families, they're not gonna wanna sit and look when they've got 3 kids in tow. I'll pick this up, oh, that's good, okay, and move on. So,
Doug?
How do we measure success?
Through the goals and objectives.
How are you gonna measure it?
There are measurable things in there.
There's 2 of them.
Did we increase our materials budget by 5% or did we not?
That's gonna be a tough one.
It's gonna be a tough one. That's
based
gonna
on
be
budget,
tough.
So you have to
Yep.
save on other things.
Mm-hmm.
I also noticed that in 2019 and 20, we really don't
do accomplish anything. We study, or we have committees. Previously, we already did a space and traffic flow assessment, I think a year or 2 years ago. I think we also did a map of the floor plan. Upgrading the fire protection system is something that came up because we have to do it. It's, I don't see us accomplishing something other than studying and committeeing for a year. And then in 2021 and 2022, well, that's 3 years away. We want to wait 3 years to install an LCD green screen in the entryway? Why don't we do it now? We talked about doing it a year ago. We have the money. Nobody asked for the money. Am I right or wrong? I mean, I'm being very critical. I mean, overall, I am not really satisfied with this. I don't think it is measurable. I would have a difficult time to rate Amy as the director because there isn't an awful lot in here that's requiring action. It's just have a committee examine something. But we haven't moved forward on things that we've already had in the past. And we haven't accomplished those already.
We are already halfway through 2019. It's hard to get things done in short amount of time.
The LCD screen could be done in about 2 months at the most. You talk about partnerships, nurture and grow relationships established with area businesses and organizations. That is 3 years out. Did anyone read the newspaper a couple weeks ago and see John Torinus's editorial concerning the outstanding facilities and attractions in downtown West Bend? Did anybody see that?
I did.
How many times did you see the library mentioned? Never.
I'm not gonna go into his article because he's tied into the theater.
He's
So
what?
he's tied into the theater renovation, and that's what, and the art museum, so that's his focus.
That's his focus, except he also listed restaurants, he listed other things that were happening in downtown West Bend, and never a word about the library. I didn't see any letters to the editor from anybody on the board. I didn't do it because I was gonna wait to see what would happen, and nothing happened. So if we haven't convinced one of the business leaders of the priority of the library, and we're gonna wait for 3 years to try to get that accomplished, the library is not a priority with the city. The library does not seem to be a priority with citizens. If we're gonna market, we've had a marketing plan for a couple of years, and it hasn't changed anything. I mean, did you look back at last year's strategic plan and see what you've done and what is projected to be done now? And that was specific. This is not specific. This is very inspecific. Not very specific.
Do you want us to go back to the drawing board?
Well, I don't know. I guess that's,
I think what I'm hearing you say, Doug, is what I'd like to go with this are those strategic action steps, that other document that I referenced, like this is that one pager. You know, and I'll be honest with you, buy LCD screen today, I'll come down here and help Brad hook it up. What's it gonna do? It's gonna sit there with no plan, what are we putting on it, what are we using it for? You know, there's a lot of, we can install a lot of things here. You know, in the world that I live in, we install a lot of stuff, but what's the purpose for it, how are we using it? That's what's gotta be figured out, or we're just wasting money.
well,
And that's just my take on it is, you know, what are we doing with these things? That's what has to be figured out before we install the LCD screen. Not saying that couldn't move up and is it important as, you know, I mean, it says we start an Instagram page. I guess I'd like to know what is the plan to use it? How do we gain, you know, some of those things? that's where I look at it is next month, I would love, or 2 months from now, whenever we meet, is that bigger, deeper document.
Okay.
But I think this is a very good start, and maybe, you know, I don't know, maybe, you know, that's where I guess, that's where we get stuck in, is those action steps,
Yeah.
which are fine. I also, and John Trinos is a great guy, but that's one thing that went in the paper, and you said you didn't write the article, well, maybe I thought the same thing, and everybody else sitting at this table. You know, is why we didn't do that. I think we have to start somewhere, and yeah, we have to study certain things, but we need the action steps before we can sit here and question.
Okay.
That's just my feedback.
Cindy, would you like to comment? I've been calling on everyone, so
I
everyone,
I did,
okay,
Yeah,
you're
it's
you're
in,
comfortable?
when I talked about the mission.
Joseph?
I do really like the mission statement and the values and the vision. I think in today's age, less wordy is always better, because you're not gonna sit and read a poster on the wall that's 10 lines long that you're getting lost and you have to reread it twice because you misread something, or people are gonna read it and, oh, hey, we can come here to discover new things or to connect or succeed. And that's what they're gonna take away from it, instead of, well, how specifically am I going to connect? If they're that interested in connecting, they'll figure it out. They'll ask questions, or they will try new things. Like, it's just, that's my take on the mission statement and all the visions. I do think the objectives are a little, they just have a very broad spectrum of what they're covering, which is sort of understandable since it's a larger thing, and but yeah, some of them get really specific, and then other ones are extremely vague. Yeah.
Okay.
And Jesse?
We can move faster on these goals. We just need to see how things go and what support we get from the start.
Repeat it again for me.
We can move faster on these goals. We just need to see how things go and what support we get from the start.
Good support from,
From the board,
From the
from
board.
the community, from
I can
business.
empathize with you, I was like that for 3 months when I was working. It's tough, it's really, and I had to write. All right, I'll go along with this, I mean, I'm expressing my opinion.
I think though the next step, like you all have commented and you've all said, is that we need to take this now and expand it a little bit with action steps and probably time, you know, specific dates and stuff like that that can be measurable. The, interesting, the way it was done, as I kind of looked at it, I thought, are we gonna put this out for the public, and is that why we put the dates? Is this something that we want the public to see and hold us accountable for?
That was the original intent, was this was for the board and for the public, because anything I put in the board packet is public information.
No, I know,
So,
but,
that was the original intent, and,
because I do, as I review it, I kind of am looking at it and thinking it actually isn't a bad marketing tool,
correct.
you know?
That way people can see what we are working towards.
Well, and when you talk about branding, you know what I mean, not just the colors and the logo and all of those things, but when you talk about that, maybe it is something when you walk in the front door. Maybe this turns into also that one poster so you can see, you know, so people know where the library's going. You know, and we're trying to increase this, or it's the Instagram page, or whatever it is, people can see that. And it's the idea of helping people, what do we have to offer? And in today's day of information age, you can put so much up. We see this at schools, you see this with businesses. You're inundated with emails, you're inundated with social media.
That's true.
The more places you can populate it where it looks the same, the better chance it sticks in somebody's mind. And you gotta see things 7, 8, 9, 10 times for it to really to trigger nowadays. I mean, I'd shut my email off if I could for a day just to not have to go through them, because you process it so fast today that we can use this around the building and outside of the building. I mean, this becomes what it's handed out if Amy goes and talks to Kiwanis. This is, you know, we're working with partners and saying,
That would be
"Come on,
good.
This goes with it. It all drives back to that one plan."
And this is how you can relate to businesses, is you give them the strategies and say, this is what we're trying to do. this is what we're looking for and this is what we need help doing. And that's a good way as a first step to actually get out there and get businesses involved.
So are you looking for a motion to approve? What are we looking for?
That is up to you. If you're ready to approve this, if you want it to go back to committee, we can go back and revise some of the goals and objectives to be more broad based on the planning phase and,
Well, this is gonna be whatever, it will be a living document, so it'll
Mhm.
probably be revised as we go along on things
right,
too.
and I am working on a larger document that outlines action steps and everything, but I'm still working on it, so.
As, as
And if you want me to, I'm sorry, if you want me to create that document and present this with that document as the strategic plan, I can do that in the next 2 months.
I guess as everyone was talking about their response to this, I didn't hear any negative comments on the goals. I mean, all those goals, I think, were pretty good. So maybe that would be one thing we could keep, and then just
Revise the
flesh
objectives.
out these a little bit more to make them more general.
Okay.
I agree with you on that. The goals are good. I don't have any issue with that. My issue is that I can't measure any success.
Okay.
I'd like to see something, and if it's the action steps, and that tells how you're gonna do things and what you're gonna accomplish, fine. But I think maybe also put some of this in a perspective, as somebody pointed out, replace the story room chairs, and yet
Yeah.
you're just conducting a survey,
Right.
so.
Okay. I understand that.
I guess, Amy, I had one question.
Sure.
With the facility, and maybe it's more of a comment than a question, I don't know. Amy, you're thinking, like, I love the goal of ensure that the library is welcoming, it's comfortable, safe, and easy to navigate. When I think of safety, and we deal a lot with changing climate and safety in schools, I'm missing that safe
Okay.
portion of this other than that fire system. Like, I think of it's staff training, I think it's assessments, it's those things, I know some of the things that you're already doing. I think that might be more of an overarching goal for 1 year, is to develop some planning around that and update, whatever yours, we call them safety binders and our safety processes, that might be an entire year in conjunction with the police department, fire department, and so forth. And just that would be something I would like to see in there as such a large public space.
Okay.
And that's more of an action step piece
Right.
with a higher yearly objective.
I guess my only other comment would just be the partnerships goals is a little specific. You're going
Okay.
for a specific group, whereas I think you could maybe open it up to potentially partner with other companies or other groups. I know that, I mean, theoretically, the partnership between the city and, the Parks Department would be established within a year, and then the rest of the time, what are we trying to do?
Okay.
I think the goal that you have under partnerships should be an objective.
Okay.
And that the partnership should be identified as opening it up, like Joseph is saying, this looks like we're limiting it
I
to
see what you're
this
saying.
partnership, and we
Yeah.
don't wanna do that, so that's very good.
Okay.
Flip-flop, your 2020,
Right.
21
Yep.
objective is really your goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yep, yep,
Got it.
agree, yeah. Any further discussion? Do we need approval from the board?
If you want to take it back to committee and we can revise this, and then we can bring it back.
Wanna
I
do-
so move to do that.
Okay.
I'd like to see you take it back and
Revise.
do it. You've gone through this before, and this is the worst part of doing goals and objectives in a strategic plan,
It's the hardest part.
because you have one concept, somebody else has another, and now you're, instead of 3 or 4 of you on a committee,
It's
convincing each other, now it's
9 of
four.
us.
We each have our own inputs.
Right.
And I think, take my criticism constructively. Because I'm always going to be one that wants to be able to measure things. And I think that if we, especially if we publish this data marketing tool, we may be measured by the community also.
Yes.
We appreciate your input.
Okay, so we have a motion to take it back. I don't know if
No,
we
you
need a
don't,
motion.
I just
I
put
don't
that
just
you-
need a
it
motion.
was, no action was taken at this time, going back to the strategic planning committee.
Okay, sounds good. And if anybody comes up with anything or looks at this and sees something they think is really missing, you can let.
Please let me know, please let Jesse know.
And if somebody answers Jesse's phone without a voice, we'll know we got the right number.
Email works great.
All right. Okay, so we finished the strategic plan. Now we will move on to the new business, the sprinkler system pipe replacement.
Okay, the pipe in question, as you know, is above the reference desk and the computers on the second floor. It's in the vaulted ceiling. No scaffolding will be required for this project. They were able to investigate the attic space, and it's enough where the guys can get in and put the pipe in without the scaffolding. Yes, that was a good thing. The estimate is in your packet, and there's an option to go for a thicker pipe. I gave you all the documentation that I received through email. The 40 pipe is much thicker than the 10 pipe, which is up there right now. The difference in cost is about $9,500. Okay? They can't guarantee that it will last twice as long. However, it will last longer because it'll take more to actually corrode the inside and create
My question is, because it is a thicker pipe, are they gonna then have to replace all the hangers? Is gonna be much more weight up there? So.
They have to.
That's part of it.
Part of it,
That's
okay,
part of
yeah,
it too.
Yeah, 'cause I was concerned about the weight.
Where, I couldn't remember, where was the leak discovered? Or that was a problem?
Where was it discovered? It was discovered by process of elimination because it's not in the lower parts of the ceiling and there's a leak up there somewhere. So we know it's in the top part in that run of pipe.
Do you know how old that pipe is?
Building, 2000. It was built with the building.
Well, this was an addition to an existing building.
Right, but it's in the upstairs and the upstairs didn't exist before the building was
So
built.
It has lasted about 20 years.
Approximately.
Do we know how severe the leak is?
No, we do not. We know that the compressors are barely keeping up right now. And we have 2 compressors going.
So we have did we have tiles that we noticed this on? Ceiling, how did we notice this, or just by
We
the?
knew it because the compressors were going off a lot more than they should be.
Okay.
So this is a dry system.
It's a dry system.
So there's no water in it until it actually
He
triggers,
needs it.
triggered by a fire, so it's like having an air compressor.
Oh, okay.
So you're not gonna see stains.
Oh,
It's
that's
like-
what I missed, that it's a
Yeah,
dry
'cause I was,
system.
and I was reading it, 'cause- and so it's dry, when it
When it notices fire,
it's
it's
gonna release water into it. So that's where your corrosion is coming in for the oxygen sitting inside that system, and then if there is a leak and it's running more, you actually have more air changeover than a
Correct.
pressurized closed system at that point.
In fact, what happened was they said they could hear it, but it was somewhere along the run, they couldn't know where it would be.
Yeah.
There's no way you can detect that.
What is the length of pipe we're replacing? Maybe that's the thing I didn't.
Over
I saw
100 feet,
100,
150 feet, 130 feet.
Okay. I guess the only question I have is reading through this whole email before tonight is I guess I would like them to at least give us a ballpark figure as you talk about facilities that nitrogen generators. So
Yeah,
instead
there's
of
no
running,
quote for that.
I think you don't have to have that, but I'd like, as you plan for your facilities piece, that might be just what is a ballpark figure in case, and what are the true benefits? I get it that if you're putting nitrogen in there and of oxygen, you'll have less corrosion, all those types of things. It might be something to ask them what a ballpark figure would be for future planning purposes.
Sure.
The only time if water goes through this and when it goes off, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right,
You do get condensation with compressed air, we have it all the time at the
Right.
machine shop.
Yeah.
And we have to bleed out when we run the big air compressor every morning. You see, you do get a little bit of condensation. We do have
Right.
compressors that draw out the water from the airlines
Right.
all over the building.
but my thought is, what if he had the nitrogen system with Schedule 10 pipe? That option was not looked at.
No.
So the thinner pipe with the nitrogen system.
Right. Because you're still gonna have corrosion even with Schedule 40.
Mm-hmm.
And they point out, you know, the nitrogen thing. Well, what would the nitrogen thing cost and use Schedule 10 pipe?
So if we didn't go for the bigger pipe,
Correct.
if we went with the nitrogen, what would that, you know, does that offset the cost of the?
Well,
We don't
I'm
know.
not sure.
Okay.
No, that's what I'm saying, why
Yeah.
don't you get a quote for that?
But didn't you just say that even with the nitrogen, you're still gonna have corrosion, correct?
No, that
Well, you get
decreases,
a lot
It
less.
decreases the
Less,
less.
it decreases the corrosion. So what he's looking at, right now, they're saying, you can have Schedule 10 for this much money, Schedule 40 for this much money.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how much longer, we can't anticipate, because they had a whole list of variables, but it will last longer. We don't know if longer is 1 year or another.
Or
20
doubling.
years. You know, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then they, as a, kind of like a footnote, they throw in the nitrogen thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look at the nitrogen to replace the air in the system, which will reduce the contamination. And we may end up with Schedule 10 piping lasting almost as long as Schedule 40.
This is true. It's hard to say because
I know,
they're,
you know,
they're variables.
But see, it's easy to say, well, it's 51,000,
Mm-hmm.
and, yeah, let's spend another 9 because they say it will last longer.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying, well, is there a way to make Schedule 10 last longer? And Mr. Supplier, you've got all this data and everything on pipes, and boy, they do. And they could do some kind of a projection.
You get pricing, but we have two compressors,
Two
right?
compressors, yes.
So we have to find out, would we need 2 nitrogen system compressors?
I don't know.
And so there's a lot of
We
different.
probably
Is that,
would.
is that gonna take too much time to do all this analysis? Because we are, this is important to get this
Yes.
fixed as soon as possible.
I honestly think we should do.
The 10 pipe and,
No,
you want the
if we
heavier
have the
pipe?
money,
So with that though, in this email, one other thing to consider, and again, I'm going off of reading emails and I'm not the expert in this area.
Neither
If
am
they're
I.
gonna replace 130 feet of this pipe with a thicker pipe, they have to recalculate to make sure that
Correct.
we actually have the correct amount of water to our system. You're re-engineering a new system. Because that pipe on the inside went from this to this.
oh.
That's right.
And so that's another whole piece of this. As much as thickness sounds great in the sense of corrosion,
Yeah,
we could be up in the costs
and not have
Right,
the
and
water.
that's where the
yeah,
9,500 comes from.
where,
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
don't know, that's where you don't wanna get into it, and I just feel there's
Correct.
some incomplete answers if they're really bidding, saying this is 130, what's our engineering cost on this? And all of a sudden, oh yeah, we're gonna do this, but yet we can't provide enough water, so now you gotta run additional piping and have a second pipe, or however that gets fixed in this system.
that might be
that's true.
too much.
That's why I was debating between the two, and I needed to talk to you guys to see
And
what
the
you
reality
thought.
is, we got 20 years out of the other pipe, if we get 20 out of this one, and if putting nitrogen in the entire system is a better return on investment, I'd rather see our money go there than have to re-engineer an entire system.
That's a
because we
good
don't have enough
point.
water.
And the problem is, if we would go to the higher pipe and we wouldn't realize this, we could hit a snag if, you know, we would need the water and
I mean, the compressors are designed to handle a certain flow,
Correct.
and I'm gonna guess they're gonna come back and say, well, if you're gonna use Schedule 40
your
pipe, you're
compressors.
gonna need more, you're gonna need more
And
power.
I'm
Yeah.
reading right from the email, based upon original hydraulic calculations on how your system was designed and installed, the new pipe thickness may not provide you with required water as designed
Yeah.
Correct.
If you're repairing 5 feet, that's one thing, there's less friction. But if you're repairing, 130 feet,
It's a lot different.
yeah, there's a lot of, we would have to literally create the
That's-
existing thing on paper. I don't know, I get real leery about that and the liability costs right there, and all of a sudden hidden costs versus replace it with the same thing in 20
Yeah.
years is 20
Yeah.
years.
I mean, if this is really urgent, then let's just go with Schedule 10. Because then it's fixed.
Right, you're just replacing the existing
What the
piece that's
existing
there, and
is.
you're
Everything
not
else supports it.
making it. And like you had brought up about the weight, do they have to,
Well,
with
just
the
like
heavier
Tim
pipe and
said too, all of a
everything?
sudden you've got a bigger pipe, more water, are we gonna have enough power to push the water through the system? Because all of a sudden you've got,
Yeah, more
And that's
more
what it
space.
sounds like they have to recalculate, and that's
Oh.
the
Right.
unknown in this.
That's the
We don't-
unknown.
We don't know, it's like, we said we wanna do this, now they gotta go back and re-engineer the whole system, which, when I hear re-engineer on paper, that's money.
the only thing I would either go with what we have now, same pipe to get it fixed, or see what's the price to be to replace those compressors. Are the compressors just gonna be running, that means draining the system, like when you get nitrogen in your car tires, they have a separate tank just with nitrogen. They're just gonna drain all the air out and use our same compressors, you just fill it with nitrogen.
That I don't know.
See, I think that would
I don't
be
know
more-
enough about compressors to do
Right.
that, so.
But I think that would be something we push to our strategic facilities planning and work on that. Not at this time, I
They
mean,
talked
this,
about
this,
adding a nitrogen
yeah,
generator, so I gotta believe that.
there would be a
but I think
cost.
that's to that whole, if we fix this, then what is the cost for this?
Yeah.
So it says, once it's been tested under our current hydrostatic pressure test,
Right.
is what would that look like to add that nitrogen generator?
Correct.
That's the long-term plan.
That's a
of this,
long-term.
because if this piece is already going, in another 5 years, we're gonna have another piece,
Right.
and another piece. Keep the same system, what can we do to prolong it if that's the case? That's my take on that.
Yep.
I would make a motion that we replace the pipe with Schedule 10 and go ahead with the $50,000 and get additional information for the nitrogen system and the follow-up of what other things
No.
may be
The
necessary.
total was 51,287.
Okay, one of the things I want to clarify, this is a building issue, it is capital, but the city has told us that they do not have funding to help us. So this will be money that will be coming out of our fund balance. Technically, this is a city building, it should be handled through the city, at least partially. And that's why, if you look at the packet, I had asked Amy to put in a document in there, and that was in
The
there,
last
right?
page.
The last page. I just wanted the board to see exactly what we, the library, has been spending out of our fund balance on a lot of issues that actually should be considered capital. We should be getting funding from the city, but we've not had we have not gotten funding from them. So we are dipping into our savings, or our fund balance. And I don't have a problem with dipping into our fund balance, because someone had said to me at one time, the money that we have in these fund balances was actually taxpayer money, and the taxpayers gave it to us spend
On the library.
on the library. So the only concern I do have is if we run into too much of this, say, where we're gonna be spending everything, we will not have an emergency fund or any fund to help this building. And when that happens, if the city doesn't do anything, we're gonna be out of luck.
Deb, is there a document that outlines, like, when I think of that, there's the building envelope, there's the mechanicals, but then we got, furniture and carpeting. Well, to me, furniture isn't the same as the city building as, the sprinkler system. Is there something that details that more in depth, or is it just, it's a city building, it's theirs?
Technically, it's a city building, and they should be providing us with anything that's a capital expense, okay? This is a capital expense. But they don't have the funding, we do, and it is something we have to get done.
And that's where when I look through this project, like, and I'm trying to delineate between the two, like the furniture thing, yeah, that's ours, that, to me, that's fine.
The roof is not,
The
and
roof
that's
is
gonna,
not.
and that is
The
why,
replacement of the window, that's why I was looking for that
Yeah.
detail, because you could say capital expenditure, technology, I'm sure Brad could find a few capital expenditures to buy for us in technology. That's where, just that details of, I mean, there's a difference between paint on the walls or whatever it is, than there is the roof or the windows.
and the roof, like I said, the reason I asked Chris to present this to the common council so they can put it in their budget, so it's not gonna be a shock to them. Had this not been something that we really need, we could have probably put it out there and pushed it out, but this is not something we can push out.
Okay.
Okay?
Two things. One relates to this document. This is, I checked with Amy, this is monies that the board approved to spend in 2016. That was $704,000. I've asked her for next month, could she come out with a listing of when we spent it? In other words, we may have approved it in 16, but we spent it in 17.
Okay.
So we have a history of this. There's no history of any of this stuff. I went on the website, can't find anything. And I think
No,
we need
I have to go through the vouchers and
Right.
see when things were paid. Because that's where it's all listed.
And then the second point is that, to touch on what Deb said, and this may be a little repetitive, but the fund balances that we have are all taxpayer money.
Absolutely.
Those were achieved by not spending everything that was in the budget years and years ago. So I guess, in my mind, it's incumbent upon us, rather than go to the city and say, we need money. I'm just like most people, I don't want my taxes to go up. If they go up, fine. But let's spend the taxpayer money that we have now, help relieve some of the pressure on the city. And we can take this from county money, we can take it from city money. But on this $50-some thousand, we should go ahead, do it, and spend the money.
And,
Good.
oh, go ahead.
Question with this, do you have a board policy or library policy that states a percentage of our operating budget that we run in our fund balance, that we keep minimum? So like the school
Not
district,
right now.
we keep it for a variety of things. I don't wanna drain it to zero
We,
because of the what ifs.
that's our emergency fund. If you look on here, we determined that the emergency fund here is the dollar amount based on our budget, that even the city had that same percentage.
Right.
So the 2% is in the emergency fund that we have from the county and the library, and this must have been more than 5
More
years
than
ago.
that, 'cause I
It
checked
was
with them.
many years ago, and that was determined, the city said you need to keep this much as an emergency fund, and that's what those
And-
two
and
are.
that's good to have, because those are those funds you don't wanna drain, so you're not.
Those, yes.
And that's why I wanna make sure that all of a sudden, we have that delineated separately versus, well, we've
Yes.
got 200, well, no, then that 200 is. And then I look at some of the things that we purchased on here, like, the LED lighting, that was to our benefit, because we knew that was a money savings piece.
Well,
This is,
Tim, there's also, we were supposed to have saved that and recouped that money. And I don't know, and we were supposed to be tracking it, I don't know if we've ever tracked it.
Yeah, we did. We recouped it in 2 years.
Okay,
I mean, I gotta believe that's just pulling your power bills, I mean, really, that's the only way doesn't mean that other things.
So that one, and if you notice, we took that from the strategic plan, and that was indeed, so we had the payback, and we got the payback, so yes, we spent money, but we got it back in 2 years.
So my recommendation for this 51,000+ is that we take the money out of, it has to come out of the strategic plan, because it's not technology. And I don't wanna take, like Tim, you had said, the emergency fund sits there and is the emergency fund. I mean, we could take it out of the emergency, but then transfer money into it, and that's
And
kind
I
of.
think when I see this, I see Fund 21 emergency fund, Fund 20, I'd like to stop spending that fund and use our other
Yeah.
fund balances, or if we have to create a fund balance for facilities, I just, tagging it and saying, don't touch.
And that might be something for a future board to, meeting to talk about, is maybe taking a look at some of this money that's out there from the strategic plan and transferring it into a building fund. Now, we also have in the building fund, we have 37,000 from the original
We just
building,
approved
but we.
the 8250 out of that.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is we did have from the original building, but we might have to think about transferring some of the strategic into the building fund, because the building is getting to be 20 years old. But anyways, my recommendation would be that we take this out of the library strategic plan, out of Fund 21, because it actually is the city fund, but if you want to do half and half out of the city and the county, that's fine
I
too.
think we should,
Should
and
what?
half?
half and half.
Half and half. Okay. So we need a motion to replace the piping per the dollar agreement of 51 plus thousand,
I think I did that, didn't I?
Yes.
Yes,
We
it just-
changed the funds.
but we changed the funds,
Oh.
the funds, we
Coming
had to add
out
the
of-
funds.
Fund.
126.
Fund 21 library fund and 126 strategic plan.
21
Half and half.
126 strategic plan.
Yeah.
Half and half.
We have a motion, do we have a second? Nope,
I'll second it.
okay, and then you have a
one additional
question. Okay.
Do we have a time frame? Because this is a life safety thing in my
Yes.
mind. Because if
I'm-
it's
I
got a
want-
leak and now you run water through, right?
Right.
We signed this today, how fast are they here? Do we know?
I'm not sure. I will send it over to Luke tomorrow morning, early,
Okay.
and I will call him to get him in as soon as possible.
And then I have one other question, because it has a pricing piece in there of pricing changes, and it goes back to the original motion. Do we want to add a contingency with the volatile of pricing of materials
I think
right
that
now?
would be good.
I don't want this to have to wait another month to come back, because the real price comes in at $1,000. So, and maybe that's, we have to amend the motion or whatever.
I think their quote,
Is good for 30 days?
accounts for that.
I
But
thought it
do
said
we-
that final
do
pricing
we-
had to be taken care of.
Yeah,
We
do we
gotta-
want to
Yes.
throw an extra 5,000 on to this if it would?
Do it upon receipt.
Oh, it is, price is valid for 60 days.
Oh, okay, okay.
I just want to make sure that.
Do we want to, and this is still in the discussion, after this motion, do we want to have a second motion to allow any additional spending if the need would arise on this of so many $1,000s that we would pre-approve just in case?
A contingency, basically. That's up to the board.
Well, if there's a contract,
Yeah, this is a pretty specific.
This is pretty
Contract.
specific.
Okay.
Part of that, I mean, to me, that's we found something really worse when we get up there, but from what I've read, they've been up, crawling
Okay.
around and everything else, isn't it one of those, we think it's in here and we haven't seen it, here's a quote cited, so.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, our next regular meeting,
do we want to have a task that Amy should also find out about?
Yes,
that would be a
future.
task, yes, that'll,
The nitrogen.
yeah, for the compressor.
yeah.
And I guess I would just ask maybe, Amy, that you email the board when it's done. Just because it is a life safety, if we know the
Yep.
timeline when they hear, as a follow-up task.
Okay, now we can move on. Our next regular meeting will be, you said July 16th?
Yes.
July 16th. The task assignments, Ms. Joanne?
Okay, this trip, a teacher's plan committee has a little work to do to develop a goals, objectives, and action items that based on the comment that you've gotten here, and then, Amy needs to follow up with sprinkler system.
Okay, and then the task of Amy to work in conjunction with the basement group. She'll put together the things that she identifies that might not be in addition to what the basement renovation has, correct?
Right, and that wasn't really,
A task?
that wasn't really to find, well, to,
Basement renovations.
I wonder if the task is we report back. I I mean, does that become a standing item on every single
Yep.
agenda?
Okay.
And it's just a report
Okay.
of, I'm just thinking of like a true committee structure,
Yeah.
instead of very specific, because what all of a sudden we meet and there's something outside of that
No,
task.
no, that was totally indifferent to your meeting. This is the fact that we added on, that, remember Doug was saying, what if something else needs to be done from a staffing that you
From
and Brad
staffing.
were gonna be looking at, not staffing, but what that staff.
To-do
so,
list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to-do list.
Yeah, extra costs on the operational side of it.
Okay. I think we have it. We are adjourned. 8
8
o'clock.
o'clock.
A
So
little
I
bit
told you
long,
8
but-
o'clock.
Yeah.
Joseph,
Did you have surgery?
when you started to give me
How long
report,
can you-
we had a
yep.
comment